morning, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Dave Crouch, and this is Policy Talks, brought to you each month by the Williamson Inc., our local Chamber of Commerce here in Williamson County. And just want to welcome all the viewers we have on WCTV Channel 3 and the listeners on WAKM 950. Glad to have everyone with us this morning, and especially our special guest this morning, our Spring Hill Mayor, Rick Graham, and the City Administrator from Spring Hill, Victor May. And gentlemen, glad to have you all with us this morning. And just an awful lot going on down at Spring Hill this year, and every day down there, it seems like. And we want to get you to kind of give us the inside story on all the goings on down there. Coronavirus has changed our world. 2020 is a little different than any year you've seen so far, Mr. Rick. You've been mayor now for 14 years, I think, and you probably thought you'd seen everything. But what is 2020? How's it been different?
Thank you, Dave. I've actually been mayor. I'll finish up my 8th year as mayor in April, and I was an alderman for 6 years, so 14 years on the board.
Okay.
And it's been a great 14 years, but it's as you well know, I'm not running again, so it's time to pass those reins on to somebody else. But to get to your question, what a way to end with this pandemic, and it has been very challenging, and it's been very sad. You know, when you have to cancel Christmas parades and community gatherings and events, it is it's just very, very sad. You know, and to get back live one day and for meetings and like this, and I think everybody misses the social aspects of being together and such. But it's been difficult, and it's been difficult on citizens and people as the cities had to, especially in those early days back in the spring, you know, when we had to reduce services and close parks and do all those things to when this thing first started. So yeah, it's been a tough road. 2020 will be a year we won't never forget.
So in the mask wars, is Spring Hill requiring masks, or how are you handling that situation?
We are in a split county, and puts us in a very unusual predicament because being Williamson County in the north and Murray County in the south, and just like when Mayor Rogers Anderson, you know, does a very good job of staying in touch with his mayors and asking our input, even though it was his decision for the county, and but he wanted the advice and input from all his mayors, and you know, and that was one that I couldn't support this past mandate for Williamson County because of the businesses in Spring Hill, and because the north side of Spring Hill businesses tell us that they suffer loss of business because some people, you know, will not wear a mask, and they would go shop in South Spring Hill on the Murray side before they would do so on the north side. So puts us in a bad spot. So I actually wish that it was a city municipality decision, and because that would help us and help others, but that wasn't possible with the governor's order. So, and I don't see Murray County ever doing a mandate. So we live, you know, so right now, if you're in North Spring Hill, you're under a mask mandate, and if you're in South Spring Hill, you're not.
Very confusing. Very confusing.
Very confusing.
Victor, you're the city administrator, and I'm sure that as you oversee all the operations of the city, the COVID has created a lot of issues. How are you handling those? What issues are you having the biggest issues with?
So the biggest issues are really just employee safety, really. We want to ensure that, initially when all of the COVID information came out, and we went through a pretty rigorous process of trying to evaluate all of our potential interactions and our potential danger for our employees, and wanted to be able to keep them safe, and then also the citizenry as well. And as Mayor already alluded, we ended up closing some parks. But as we've continued on, when the numbers of the virus began to get a little less in both counties, we kind of relaxed some of our restrictions. We never did close our city hall, but we split our shifts so that not all the employees were here at any one time, so that if there was an outbreak, we wouldn't end up quarantining everyone in City Hall. We got away from that for 2 or 3 months, but actually as of last week, we've kind of reinstituted those things. Just as we've seen the numbers climb on both the Murray and Williamson side, we want to just once again ensure that there's a continuity of service that goes on with the city and all the different functions. And so trying to manage around that, in doing that, you have a decreased number of employees on various shifts. We don't do that with the police and fire. We maintain those shifts, but street maintenance, parks, those types of things where we send half of our employees home at any given day, that just makes it challenging to get the work done that we need to get done and continue to serve the citizens, but keep everyone as safe as we possibly can.
So it's had an interesting effect on your sales tax, though. I was surprised to see. Tell us how it's affected that.
So, Mayor, do you want to talk about that? Do you want me to jump in?
Well, let me give my 2 cents,
Okay.
and then let you provide more color to it, I'm sure. But back in the budget process, which started about the same time as the pandemic, right away we decided to go with a bare bones budget, as a lot of municipalities so choose. So, it's a guessing game. So we took a 20% reduction in sales tax revenue on our budget, thinking, with all the shutdowns in those early days, and until the restaurants and all came back and such, thinking that we would lose about a 20%, on our sales tax revenues. And but actually today we are 30% up on budget, which means that we are 10% over last year, prior year. So our sales tax revenues are actually up over last year by 10%. So the good news about that is, we're way under budget, and that's going to provide us some revenues for some projects probably mid-year. And what we like about that is that there'll actually be money in the bank instead of projections. So we'll actually know what money we have instead of doing a budget projection type spending program. So that's really good. I'll leave the rest of it for Victor.
So when we started out our process, starting about March of last year, we actually employed a company out of Memphis to come in called Nava Retail to come in and review the sales tax in particular that had gone on, and help us with an understanding of where our loss, what our losses might be. They concluded their study around latter part of April, May, June rather. And actually their study came back and said, well, if you see a loss, it's probably not going to be very much. It's probably only going to be 1 to 2%. What we, as the mayor said, we actually ended up being 10% over. And a lot of that was attributed to people staying home and utilizing their instead of going out and shopping, they were using the internet. And so those internet sales really had taken off. And then they, even though we were, had all the COVID, while they might not be going to the restaurants to eat, they were certainly doing takeout and curbside service and things like that at those restaurants. And when we did an analysis, what we found is that I think it was our June, July numbers were equivalent. The sales were equivalent to our 2018 Christmas sales as far as the volume of numbers. So it was an amazing amount of sales that had taken place inside the city during that same time frame. So we were pretty excited about that. That has sustained fairly well. We have, in this last month, we've noticed it dropped just a little bit, but when you look at the way that the city normally collects tax and the way that normally spend, we would actually expect a little tail off from some of that summer spending. And so we're pretty excited about what has happened there. That's one of the silver linings of COVID, as we've said in other times when we've been together.
Very interesting. I know most municipalities were expecting a huge cut in revenues. And it's interesting, though, that you mentioned that internet sales, you are collecting revenue on those, the sales tax on those internet sales.
We're getting some of it. It's the areas where the state mandates the tax be paid. We're getting some of those collections.
Hey, Victor, tell them about swimming pool permits.
Well, that's another one of the things that has really increased significantly. I don't have that number exactly, but the number of swimming pools that were put in the spring was just amazing. We had never had that kind of volume of swimming pools. And of course, people were getting ready for a lockdown summer, and they were staying at home. That was a very interesting. It's been a very interesting time for sure.
They were calling those staycations, I think. So
yep, absolutely,
that was a real deal then. You've got an election coming up in April, I believe. All the aldermen and the mayor will be on the ballot this time. Mr. Mayor, you've decided not to run again. What's going on? Why are you stepping down?
Yeah, well, it's actually half the alderman, Dave. It'd be 4 aldermen and the mayor. Every 4 years, we have the mayor race. Every 2 years, we have 4 aldermen. So it's just that time, 14 years of community service. It'll be a pleasure probably to do my real job and go home for a change. But it's been a pleasure. It really has. And I've learned so much in these 14 years and the work and the direction and working with so many different boards, because every 2 years it does change. So this April, we will have 4 aldermen and the mayor's seat, and we're looking at probably half the board turning over and maybe more. And so it's going to be a very interesting race. And we're looking right now at and talking about how we can increase the participation of voters because in April, it is tough to get, unlike today and this week and the results we've had in Tennessee with this current election. We wish we had that kind of turnout for the city election, but it historically is around 5.6% for our elections, which is frankly kind of sad. And so we're looking at adding some different locations and extending hours and things like that in April right now. And it's going to cost us a little bit more money, but we really would like a better turnout of voters. And so Spring Hill's looking probably at a really big turnover this time in our board seats.
Now, somewhat of your stature and experience, just hypothetically, Rogers Anderson hasn't announced whether he's going to run for another term or not, but just hypothetically, if he decided to retire after you've had a couple of years off, is that something you would entertain?
Oh, you be county? Oh, I, no, I think it'd be just to be honest, it'd be quite a struggle for somebody in Spring Hill, the south side of Williamson County, probably to carry a county the size of ours in the north. But no, down the road after retirement, I maybe some state positions. I don't know.
Right.
We'll see how that goes. They're going to be adding a new representative seat in our area in the election in 22. So that's going to be redrawn probably next year in 21. And so we think Spring Hill will, they'll probably move Sam Whitson's area off a little bit. He may still have a piece of Spring Hill. We'll see. We'd like that because we love Sam. And but they're going to be redrawing it, and there's going to be some additional, at least one additional seat by the census numbers and our population growth. So exciting news there.
Other opportunities down the road. We'll stay tuned and see what you decide to do. But
thank you.
Now I know the last time we talked, one of the things that when you became mayor, or actually probably when you were in for the board, your focus was on road improvement projects, and obviously there are a lot of accomplishments there to talk about, and I'd like to talk about as many of those as we have time this morning. Your Duplex Road, is it finished? Is it finally done?
Thank goodness.
Everything totally done there and open for business. And how long has that taken, Victor?
We started signed the contract with TDOT in 2006. And we have spent that much time going through all of the federal pieces, such as the environmental documents and all that. It's worth the wait, but it took a long time.
Rick, have you learned anything about the process going through all that?
Well, Dave, it's funny because, when I ran for alderman in 2007, that was my platform. Going to fix the roads, help the transportation, the infrastructure, stop this traffic. And wow, that was pretty naive. And because it takes, the average state road takes over 12 years. So that's what we've worked on. And it's my time as alderman and my time as mayor. You're given what cards, you're given what cards you have. So you have to, that's where you have to spend your time and work. And that's what we've done. We've worked on road infrastructures, and we now have a new interstate interchange coming in, basically a new gateway to North Spring Hill off this interchange. It's going to reduce our traffic on Highway 31 up through Thompson Station into Franklin. Still have that route available, but it's going to give more choices to people to jump off and on the interstate. We're widening Buckner Lane right now in conjunction with the interstate opening. Later, after my time, we'll take care of Buckner Road, and Highway 31 is under a corridor study project. After many years, we finally made the 3-year state TDOT list for Highway 31, Main Street for us. So that and Buckner Road will be like phase 2, so we have over $120 million in road projects moving. And so we've worked hard to on those projects. And we've had to put a lot of things on the back burner that I would have liked to have done during my time with this board and staff. And we had such a great staff. And but we would have loved to done more toward parks, leisure and active, passive and active parks. We are way behind a community our size. The census number that's coming out here soon, we anticipate it's going to be, around the 43, 44 mark, 1,000 people. And but we would have loved to done more toward preservation of land, because we know that if Spring Hill continues this growth, that land availability will be gone in 15, 20 years. If we don't start moving towards some land preservation, we're actually looking at a pretty big, about 500 acres right now. It's not ideally where we'd like it to be, but it's actually on the other side of I-65. And, we'd love to have it more on this side, but that's where Spring Hill's growing. We're going to be, a lot of communities grow from the interstate out. We're actually growing to the interstate and over the interstate. So that's basically what, we are focused on.
Let's drill down into each of these projects a little bit deeper. And I'm trying as best I can remember to go chronologically. But and Victor, I'll let you take the next one. But Saturn Parkway has just been extended. I think that project is open now over to Beechcroft Road, which I hear has taken a lot of traffic out of downtown Spring Hill.
It has absolutely reduced it from Town Center Parkway, which was the connector over to Beechcroft, the close connector over to Beechcroft. That opened about a month and a half ago. And the real advantage to that particular project was that it gave us an overpass over CSX Railroad, which was always one of our pinch points and safety points. Whenever the train was across the tracks, then we had a diminished emergency services on the southwest side over there. So all of that's been eliminated by this overpass. That's part of that project.
That's good. That's great. Now, what does that mean for Beechcroft Road? How far do the city limits go out Beechcroft, and what does the development look like out there?
So right now, the city limits go out to Dr. Robertson Road, which is, it's probably about 2 to 3 miles west of downtown, I guess, something like that. And that area is really developing both residentially. It's got several large residential developments on it, but then that's also kind of our heavy industrial area. So we have a lot of GM suppliers that are out there. We're actually looking at one of those suppliers is wanting to expand. And so we've got probably a half dozen of those employing a number of folks. All those folks were having to essentially route past City Hall every day, including all their heavy trucks. All that's been removed from the front of City Hall now. So it's that particular project has been outstanding.
Right. Now, Mr. Mayor, I think probably Main Street has been one of your top priorities, maybe ever since you became an alderman. And there seems to be some movement there. Exactly where are you, and what are you expecting to see happening there over the next couple of years?
Well, as I mentioned a while ago, we took, every year we would get so frustrated because we would not make the 3-year list, as they call it, with TDOT. And you don't get the ball going until you make that list. And failure. And a couple of times we really thought we were going to make it and didn't the last couple of times. And then a couple of years ago, we finally made it. And then with that, it's running also with the the South Corridor study that's going on, with GNRC, MPO, TDOT. We got this study going on, which basically covers the whole corridor of I-65 and 31. Sorry, Highway 31. Anyway, so it's just making that was just a huge accomplishment, and so now we get the ball going, and so what we want to do is coordinate with the state's work on 31. And because we've already done some preliminary work to know that we can get maybe 5 lanes in there, very tighter, smaller 5 lanes, but we can do it. And us as a city tie in Buckner Road, which will run right on up to the new interstate interchange, widening it, improving it. And that's going to be quite a project for us because again, we're into right-of-way purchase like we did at Duplex, the engineering, moving utilities. It's going to be even though it's a very short stretch of road, it's going to be very expensive. And so that's kind of phase 2, but we see some, we see that light now at the end of the tunnel, finally on Highway 31. But we feel pretty good about it, as far as those next stage. We tell people all the time that get used to orange and white barrels are going to be a big part of Spring Hill next couple of decades.
So when are they going to see orange barrels up and down Main Street?
Victor, what do you think about? It's probably about 7 years, 6-7 years.
I think it's probably in that 5 to 7 before they actually see orange barrels. The Improve Act was something that it really made that project come to life. The Improve Act that the state passed for the gas tax, we were on that list, but we weren't sure where we were on the list. And so they would have to prioritize. It could have been that we were in year 10 on that list. The city actually proactively went to TDOT and we committed an extra $2 million if they would go ahead and start that preliminary engineering and environmental study, the NEPA study. So TDOT right now is in their internal discussions on the preliminary engineering. They've taken all the work that we did that was a kind of a concept, and they've been going through it internally, basically trying to chase down what problems and issues they think that they're going to run into and get those resolved internally as best they can before they really commit to going in and understanding what the environmental impacts and the full engineering design is going to look like. One of the big hurdles that we've been looking at, or that TDOT's been looking at, is the lack of room for sidewalks along Highway 31. We've got such a tight corridor. There's only something like 60, 65 feet of right of way there. And so the lack of those sidewalks, which from the city's perspective, we're building frontage roads in order to keep business traffic. And that's where we want the sidewalks and the bike paths.
I see. Well, it certainly will make things easier. But a new interchange on I-65 is going to drastically change the traffic flows in Spring Hill. Mr. Mayor, describe exactly what the new interchange, where it's going to be and what all is involved in it.
Yeah, so for people to get an idea, once you pass 840 going south on I-65, Victor, what do you think? It's maybe a mile?
About a mile.
Yeah, about a mile down. That's where the interchange will be. If people know where the Alexander Farm is off of Buckner Lane, it's going to go right through it. And we had to move it a couple times because of the diggings and what was found there a couple times. And it's so, and it runs all the way. This is the interesting part. It runs all the way to Lewisburg Pike. And because to get the interstate approval, we had to show 2 north-south corridors running So that was the only way we could get the interstate. And so we've had to commit money that for roads that actually wasn't even in Spring Hill at that time. And some of it's been annexed in, but so that interstate interchange is going to provide not just for transportation, but the economic impact is going to be huge. As you can imagine, the businesses and what gets located in there, even besides what's already coming on the Alexander farm. So it's going to be a very nice. We're what we want to do is, and I hope the next board or two follows suit on. We want it to be very attractive, very nice, very welcoming to Spring Hill. Like Victor said, a lot of the sidewalks, benches, some little mini parks, space type there, and it's going to be a spider type. Victor can elaborate on that a little more than me, but it's going to be an introverted. We'll be riding on the opposite side of the road, so we don't have to make stops to get on and off the interstate. There'll be traffic lights on both ends, but you'll be able to make a left and get on the interstate without having to even come into a stop. So it's kind of nice.
Yeah, the design is a diverging diamond.
Thank you.
So folks may have experienced one of those over in the Gatlinburg area. There's one on the exit to go up to Sevierville.
So what is envisioned for the Alexander Farm? Because that will now become the gateway to Spring Hill. And I know that in the past, your economic development team has not had any success, or not as much success maybe as you would like, to attracting high-end office campuses there. What do you think that's going to, what will develop there, and how do you see that changing the face of Spring Hill?
Go ahead, Victor. I'll let Victor start on this one.
So the Alexander property is it's almost, it's about 700 acres. It's divided up into a myriad of uses, all different types of residential. There's some open space as well as some commercial and then office. There's about as much commercial as there is in the Cool Springs Mall area. There's about that much square footage of commercial that's planned. The office area, I'm not sure how to quantify it up there, but there's probably about 50 or 100 acres or so of it set aside for office. And so what we see is the development continues to roll south. Currently, the Goose Creek area is being built out, and you've got all those high-end businesses. And we see that we anticipate that the Buckner Lane area, Buckner Road area is going to be that next component. So while it has been difficult to develop today because it doesn't have the access, we think once that access is established, that it really takes new life and gives Williamson County yet another prime area to develop.
That would be natural, given the access to I-65, and it looks like Nashville and Huntsville are going to join hands here in a few more years, and Spring Hill may be the link there. Now, building permits, and I mean, we kind of skipped over the growth itself, but I was talking to Tom Lawrence earlier this week, and we were reminiscing about the Saturn announcement. I think it was back in 1986. And he said at the time there were 800 residents in Spring Hill. And Rick, I think you said the census is expecting 44,000. Is that correct?
Yeah.
Is growth speeding up, slowing down? What are you seeing in building permits and just sheer growth?
Well, as of today, we have, I think it's 902 new residential permits for 2020, right during the pandemic, if you can believe it. It's hard to believe that. That's the highest we've done in a few years. I think last year, Victor, what was it, about like 870, 880?
I don't think we were even that high. I think it was around in the 802, low 800s.
Okay. And then, it's climbed back up, and we just continue. Now, it's been a big paradigm shift where, years ago, in fact, when I got in office, the majority of the residential permits were in Williamson County. And today, the majority of the permits are in Murray County at Spring Hill. So that's the big shift that's gone on now. The north side is just about done, built out. We still have, of course, what we talked about, the Alexander Farm area, but with Southeast Ventures, but the south side of Spring Hill. And that's where we're trying to do things, as from what we've learned. And we've had that conversation before, back in the turbo growth years when we were doing 1,500 permits a year, and one of the fastest growing in the country, and the city wasn't doing enough to keep up with infrastructure with that kind of growth. We're doing the things today or on the Murray side of Spring Hill to make sure we don't repeat that, and be a little smarter. And we're asking a lot more of developers, and we have a greenway plan that covers the whole city and connects all our trails and walkways. So when land gets developed, they have to help with that, and have to help with our road plan, our thoroughfare plan, and so all of that is. But the growth continues, Dave. It just it's not like it was during the turbo years. Of course, we couldn't have sustained that, and a lot of people will tell you that it's hard to sustain 900 permits a year, and I'll let Victor elaborate a little more, because one of our biggest concerns is how we keep up with the water and sewage.
Victor, what kind of challenges are you seeing there?
So on the sewer side of things, the 900 really starts to push us. We would rather be, from infrastructure wise, we'd rather be in the 500 range. That would give us a little bit more time to get our infrastructure in place, at least from the way that we had planned on putting it in place. So it kind of speeds things up. We've had some challenges with TDEC of recent in trying to get plants expanded. We've gone through our wastewater facilities plan and presented a program to TDEC. They don't like us, don't really want us putting any additional effluent into Rutherford Creek, which ultimately goes to the Duck River. They want us to do land applications. So we're now, we actually spent about a year with TDEC on the other, trying to get the creek permitted. So now we're shifting our focus to land application, and that's another reason for us to be looking at acquiring some land as well. We think that we've got a good path forward, and so we're going to be working on that. On the water side, we have been for almost 2.5 years now. We've been talking with Columbian Power Water System, which serves really the not only just Columbia, but they are the primary server for Murray County water system as well. So they have a really, really large district. We've been talking to them about long-term regional use, and they have opportunity to tap into some federal loan funds at ultra low interest rates. And so our board a couple of months ago passed a resolution essentially saying that we're going to work with them for our long-term water supply. And we've been working to put together a program that hopefully will take care of the city for the next 20 to 25 years, maybe a little bit longer, depending on how that growth curve ends up being. So we're pretty excited about the things that we've put in place on the infrastructure horizon, and just we'll continue to march forward to put all of those pieces in the ground.
Great. We're jumping around here a little bit, but we talked about the Alexander property a little bit. As I drive around Spring Hill, it seems like more and more things are gravitating out toward the Port Royal interchange there off of Saturn Parkway, and had an opportunity recently to drive down through the countryside there south of Saturn Parkway, and it's just remarkable how many new subdivisions there are down there. So that's where you're seeing the growth. Is that correct?
That is correct.
It's and are you and is Spring Hill and Columbia joined down there yet, or is that a few years away?
Our boundaries don't touch yet. There is a little bit of unclaimed territory in the county that is in between us. We have a little bit of our growth boundary that goes a little further south, and I think Columbia has a little bit of their growth boundary that comes a little further north. So, but as of right now, we're not touching borders. Okay. But we have a good relationship with Columbia. We talk. Their city manager and I talk quite often about various things. So we try to keep everything in a good form there.
Rick, one of the projects that has potential to also change the character of Spring Hill is the Tennessee Children's Home property there, right in the center of the old part of Spring Hill. Give us an update there. What's going on? What's anticipated?
Well, right now the children's home is building on their new property, so you can imagine until that transition happens and they actually get the students moved over there to the Beechcroft area that they're building on. The other development of the existing property that they just sold probably won't start too much. I anticipate they'll probably start, with some, maybe some dirt moving, and they're making some major road improvements for the city and around their property in the future. And that plan is probably a 10 to 15 year, maybe 20 year phase out. It's going to take a lot longer, I believe, and probably the interstate will. But it's going to be exciting, because as we all know, one of the things that Spring Hill has always wanted, and we had many years ago before a tornado event, is a type of town square. So the developers there did a very good job of coming in and working with the city and incorporating a kind of a mix of the past, of our history, of older Spring Hill and newer Spring Hill, and what that would entail. It's got some restrictions tied to it as far as big business and chains and things like that. So it's going to bring a different aspect in that end, because one of our things we've always wanted was a walkable downtown area for Spring Hill, with kind of 12th Avenue South type feel, with entrepreneur restaurants and chains, non-chains type atmosphere where a family could go down and maybe a parking garage down there one day and some shopping and dining provided. So it's good. It's going to bring us, like I said, a whole new aspect, a feel for Spring Hill.
Speaking of historic areas, Ripaville has also been a subject of a lot of discussion, I see. And Ripaville is the plantation home, historic home, out off of just south of Saturn Parkway. So, and I think I understand the city bought that property. And Victor, what's going to happen there? What are you planning on doing with that?
So the city worked out a deal with Ripaville Inc., who was actually the owner of the property, and their long-term goals and the city's long-term goals for the property were very similar. So they actually donated the property to the city. The city in turn went back to them and is contracting with them to run and manage the house and operate that. We're subsidizing them. They had been getting a subsidy from GM for about 10 years. That subsidy was running out, and they realized that they were going to need to figure out what their long-term solutions were. And so they worked a deal with the city, and we're utilizing the hotel motel tax in order to provide that subsidy. The things that are happening on the property, there's been several different historic groups that have come in to once again to verify the things that we've always thought were true, that the one of the cabins on the back part of the property was indeed an enslaved people's cabin, that the house was built when we thought it was, and the stories that we've always heard about the happenings in the house, were they true or were they not? And so the group has really been trying to concentrate with these other historic, I'll call them the experts, to verify these things. And they've come up with a number of truths, I guess, that have been happening on the property, or that were there on the property. And they're trying to put together various programs so that the public can understand and see, how important that particular property was, even as in its importance into the precursor of the Battle of Franklin, because that's where one of the generals was the morning of. That's where the generals were having breakfast. So it's got tremendous amount of history, even beyond the Civil War. The more near-term history that happened in the early 1900s with some of the occupants of it is quite colorful. And there is there's just some great information there. The city sees it as certainly a tourist attraction. People would come and enjoy that property for the history, for just the colorful aspect that it brings to the community. But then also, it's just a magnificent piece of property. It will always stay in a passive area. The bulk of the property is actually under a land conservation easement, and the fields to the north of it are under a separate land conservation easement. So, it will always remain passive. The city's not going to go out and just build on that. When we first had the deal, there were some that were going, oh, well, that's going to be the perfect place for ball fields, and that's going to be the perfect place for a new city hall. No, it's not. It's a perfect place as it is today, and just to enhance those things. So it will continue as it is. It's a wedding venue. It's a number of things like that, but we will never commercialize that place.
See, it's obviously a beautiful piece of property, and I'm sure that it will be in city hands, will be a long-term asset that a lot of people will enjoy, and
Absolutely.
It's beautiful. Let's talk about maybe a couple more controversial things. The Northfield property. A lot of excitement when the city bought that property, 2, 3, 4 years ago. And now I think some other voices have presented another viewpoint there. Rick, tell us, what are the two lines of thought about what to do with Northfield, and what's the rationale behind each one of them?
There you go. That's a good one, Dave. And I'm glad you asked me first before Victor, because I'll probably be a little more on the political aspect of it. Northfield was a good solution for the city when we did buy it. And it was a situation where we needed to expand City Hall. We had to find a new Spring Hill Police Department headquarters. which would already be inside Northfield if we hadn't stalled. Library, which did not have to be in Northfield. And I kept telling folks that if you're worried about the library in Northfield, we can talk about that one outside of there. But our codes department, our planning department, we had to have space for our city staff, especially, and that saved us probably $15 or $20 million, and by acquiring Northfield, and we had rent money coming in, lease money coming in to help.
Let me interrupt you just a minute.
Yeah.
And tell us again where that property is.
It is it's actually it was the headquarters for Saturn. So the state built a road out to it a few years ago, right across from Ripaville. So if you see Ripaville to your left, that road off to your right leads over to a pretty large building, 300 and something thousand square feet that we acquired. And so it was just with renovation of, cosmetic, carpet, drywall, electrical, plumbing, all of that was going to save us a ton of money over new construction.
Right.
We had an election 2 years ago, year and a half ago, and the discussion started that it felt like it was not the right answer for the city to own Northfield. So with that,
why did they say that?
Yeah, I think they just because of it's a little bit outside of what they consider downtown Spring Hill, and but the argument goes that it's in a few years it's not going to be such. It's with the growth, and that argument may play some with the library, but not with the others. And as the crow flies, it's very close to City Hall. And with the new Saturn extension over, it's not even that far of a drive. But Dave, the hardest part is we still don't have an answer for where we're going to put the Spring Hill Police Department headquarters. The library would have already been open by now, and it would have been in much bigger space, renovated, very nice. Than what it will be self-standing. So to build a self-standing new construction, which there's no plans for now because it all just got stalled out, and we don't have any plans for where planning's going to go, codes, and some of the other departments. So it's unfortunate, and this next board will have that on their plate. It's going to be what are they going to do for these departments, and it's going to be very expensive for the taxpayers.
Now, and help me connect the dots here. I may be adding 2 and 2 and getting 5, but and since this is all political, Victor, we're going to try to keep you from getting fired, and I'll stay with Mayor Graham here. But now there's discussion about buying 500 acres on the east side of I-65, which is just as far south as the Northfield property, and talking about putting the same things over there. I don't get it. Explain that to me.
Yeah, well, I think, as I mentioned earlier, the land, I actually prefer this discussion because of the preservation of the land. As I mentioned earlier, Spring Hill needs to buy some of our land space for preservation before it's all gone. We know it's going to be developed out, but as I mentioned, this is on the other side of the interstate, so it doesn't make sense for a lot of things. The library, definitely not. Could we put city planning and codes and maybe a police training facility out there? yes, it may be out a little too far for a police headquarters. I don't know. That's something we'll have to talk about. Uh, uh, the purchase of this land is far from settled, and I think it's going to be a very close vote or a no vote. That's where I think it's headed. If it was more into the heartland of say, right off Saturn Parkway in Spring Hill, talking about 500 acres, I think it would be an easier purchase to digest for all the board. So it's real iffy if this land will be acquired, but in 10 years, something's going to be developed there, and it's going to be part of the new growth for Spring Hill over on the east side of I-65.
I don't doubt that. And forgive me for asking curveball questions here to you, Tom Lawrence's.
We always expect it from them.
But since this is also political, Victor, I won't. Well, you can chime in anytime you want to. But the Economic and Community Development Department, the new members of the board want to do away with it, as I understand it. And there's a lot of discussion now about, why do you need an economic development person at City Hall? Victor, what does the economic development person do now?
Well, of course, we don't have one right now, but what they did do, it was a coordinator position. And so just as that name implies, it coordinates between those who are interested in developing in the city. It coordinates them with the city. And so while its principal function wasn't to be out recruiting and actively trying to bring business in, we did do a little bit of that. But the primary job was to just really work with those people who want to develop in the city to make sure that they had everything that they needed to know. So if they were looking at property, if they didn't know what property was available, then we could show them what property was available. If they didn't know what the rules were, we could work with them and coordinate with them in order to get a good product and have them present something good to the city.
Rick, you're saved by the bell. I just realized we've got 2 minutes left, and I hate that we're ending on a controversial note because there's so many good things that have been going on in Spring Hill, and you've got a lot to be proud of in your tenure on the board.
Thank you.
But what do you hope to do in the rest of your term here between now and April?
Well, it's going to be finishing out, keeping these road projects moving toward, especially that new Gateway Interstate interchange. And again, all I'm trying to do with the conversations, get the conversation started for the next board and the other future Spring Hill leaders, as far as the things we put on the back burners for so many years with the land preservation and parks. And those are the things in these locations for these departments. That's all going to have to be determined by future leaders, and it's going to be interesting. And I want to say one more thing. We had a big announcement a couple weeks ago with GM, and looks like our plant's going to be a $2 billion investment in Spring Hill and Murray County on the plant. And very exciting that we're going to be the third GM plant for all battery vehicles. And so it looks like our plant's going to be open for several decades.
A lot of excitement and certainly success in Spring Hill. And we really appreciate the two of you all taking the time to share with us, what's going on behind the scenes and bringing us up to date on what to expect as we drive down I-65 or down Main Street through Spring Hill. a lot of things to look forward to over the next few years. Gentlemen, our time is up. Just want to thank Vanderbilt and AT&T for financially helping make this possible. Creed Henderson and the WCTV staff really make us look good, and we appreciate your help, Creed. And Tom Lawrence making it possible on WAKM AM 950 so that the radio listeners can hear it. And it wouldn't happen without a lot of help behind the scenes from several members of the chamber staff, Matt, Kel, Griffin, Nancy, Jenna. Thanks for all you all do to make this happen. And we just look forward to being back here in about a month and having another discussion. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you.